We had kids who would come in adolescent, 16, 17 years of age, who had severe COVID-associated pneumonia, who would come onto the floor, go to the ICU, be on a ventilator. And it was galling that people thought, I don't want to get a vaccine because that's my medical freedom to do that. And yet at the same time, they were asking us to take care of them. I think the response to that was wrong in a couple of ways. The response was, one, to overpromise. I think we because we so desperately wanted people to get vaccinated, I didn't think we made it clear very early on that this vaccine was not going to protect you against mild to moderate disease for long. 6 months later, you weren't going to be protected. And so from this, and in the midst of mandates, when people are mandated to get a vaccine and then they get a mild to moderate disease, which is not fun. You're talking about a couple of days of fever, consistent cough. I had a moderate disease, I would argue, about 4 months or 6 months after my third dose. That's not fun. And people were thinking, wait, I'm mandated to get a vaccine and it doesn't work. And I think we didn't make that clear. Regarding the booster dosing, you're right. There were a lot of people upset in August of 2021 when President Biden got up in front of the public and said, as of September, meaning 1 month hence, we are going to offer a third dose of this vaccine, which was at the time still the ancestral strains, pre-Omicron, to everybody. Like, what? I'm sorry, where did that come from? We're bypassing the FDA and the CDC. There were two prominent people, Marion Gruber and Phil Krause, who were senior people at the FDA who quit in anger. But I would say in our defense, because I'm on the FDA Vaccine Advisory Committee, when we met in September, we said no. And so did the CDC. So now the public's confused, right? Wait, the president's saying they're going to have a third dose. And now we're saying we're not approving that. It's the difference between what's the difference between fully vaccinated or fully protected? The language got really confusing. So there was that. And I do think that the Scott Gottlieb, I certainly know Scott Gottlieb, the people don't like the fact that he eventually worked on the board of Pfizer. And they assumed, therefore, that everything that he said had to be detainted at some level because he had a financial interest. But I don't know. I think that you can be both. It looks bad. I get that. And because it looks so bad, maybe you shouldn't comment at all. But I think he was always trying to do the right thing. I do. It's so easy to make the financial association and dismiss people. I'm the co-inventor of the rotavirus vaccine. And so, although my funding always came from the National Institutes of Health, people always say I'm deeply in the pocket of industry because Merck made our vaccine. We weren't going to make it in our basement. It's easy. It's too easy, I guess is what I'm saying.
I just want to be clear on Dr. Gottlieb. I admire him, the book he wrote on COVID and all the mistakes the CDC made and the rush to hoard the technology to do the testing for the virus, which was a repeat of a prior mistake. The CDC cannot produce anything. They're not a production facility. And he was very blunt about all the mistakes that were made in his book, and it's a wonderful book. And I think that there's two mindsets. And I am involved in pharma. And one of the reasons I think you need to be involved in pharma is because this is how the world works. You either are invited to the dinner party or you're the supper. Decide. And so I want to be in the meetings when they're talking about implementing new things that's going to affect children and pediatricians and bend their minds in a way that they do good. Now, you can judge me because they pay me for this. I am trying to influence people to do better. And I think Scott does the same thing. But I can also understand when the White House says, we bought the vaccine from Pfizer, the FDA has not approved it, the CDC has not recommended it, and Scott sits on the board, people start saying this is an annuity for Pfizer. How did this happen? Why? And why should I put my kid's leg so that they can get richer? Does it do good for my kid, or does it just make money for some people?